You have to be able to duplicate what you have and what you're doing, and then you can work your way out of a job, which is the ideal function of every single leader. Work your way out of a job.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. It's important for a business to be both profitable and purposeful. So if you're an entrepreneur who has always wanted to build a business that gives back, this episode is aimed directly at you. Our guest today is sharing the exact steps it takes to build a purposeful business, one that gives back in whatever way you want to give back. We are joined by E.A. Csolkovits, the founder of Givers University, as he shares his story and the steps to achieving a giving legacy.
It's going to be a great story. We have the privilege of knowing some of it already. But EA, you've been on Be Bold Branding with us before, and we loved it so much we wanted you to come back. But for those who are hearing your story for the first time, could you give us a little background on how Givers University got started?
Absolutely. And first and foremost, thank you for having me back. It was my pleasure. And you're one of those, having done 210 interviews in less than a year's time, I can share with you, you are actually one of the interviews that genuinely stuck out in my mind, because both of you are what I would call consummate mentors, because you've done it, as I'll sort of mention with our listeners. But thank you so much for having me back. It's a great privilege for sure. And I'm happy to share sort of how Givers University came about, which is really, the background story. My father was a milkman, born and raised in the Chicagoland area. My father had his own distributorship for a company called Twin Oaks Dairy, and he had his own milk truck, and he'd get up at 3 a.m. and go chop ice, because back then none of the delivery trucks were refrigerated. You had to chop up your own ice and put it on the milk. And that was my upbringing. There was nothing unusual about that, other than my father, I watched him get up every morning at 3 o'clock in the morning. He didn't punch in a time clock, and he wasn't reporting to a boss, so to speak. And so I did get a little bit of understanding of what it was like to sort of be your own boss, if you will. And but one horse operation, right? Or as I later on came to be call it, a one trick pony. And then subsequently, then took my first big step into becoming successful, and I became a janitor. So you see, because there's like milkman son and janitor, that's like there's only that much room between those two, for those that can't see, I'm not showing a lot of room there. So I became a janitor, and I was able to be bonded at an early age, which means insured, so if my buffer hit some piece of equipment, insurance company would pay for it. Well, because of that also allowed me to be in expensive places, and that allowed me to be in an expensive home. And every Wednesday I cleaned the home of this lady who, when I say her name, it may not reference many of your listeners, but if they've seen the movie, then they'll know who I'm talking about. There was a movie with Michael Keaton called The Founder. He plays Ray Kroc. It's about McDonald's. And at the beginning of the movie, it says based on a true story. It's true. It's based on a true story. It's not the true story. I mean, it's all Hollywood spin. And Ray Kroc wasn't that way, but Michael Keaton does a great job playing Ray Kroc. And there's a lot of events that were not at to. I lived in that area. I grew up in Oak Brook, where the world headquarters of McDonald's was. So during my life, I witnessed that whole phenomenon intimately so. And in the movie, Michael Keaton as Ray Kroc talks to a lady outside the office all the time. And that lady was the secretary. That was June Martino. That lady is the lady whose house I cleaned every single Wednesday. And when I met her, she already had the third most controlling stock in McDonald's. She was an icon. Everyone in the area knew that was June Martino, and she was worth more zeros than you had fingers and toes, And I was in every Wednesday, and I was astonished by this lady and how nice she was. For some reason, Michael and Tanya, I don't know why, but in my mind, I thought to be successful, you had to be a jerk. I don't know where that came from, but I just, I just sort of thought it. And I was astonished by this lady who seemed very approachable. She was always happy. And I could tell it wasn't because of the money. And I was there, doing the heavy work. She had a full-time maid and butler in this $1 million mansion. It was $1 million back then, in this place called Ginger Creek, an annex to Oak Brook, where the world headquarters was. And so one day I went up to her and asked her, and here I am in my janitorial suits, got my name over here and the name of janitorial service here, and a blue stripe going to, the whole outfit, so I went up there and I got up all my nerve, at 16 years old, by the way, and I'm shaking in my janitorial boots, because I'm going to go up and talk to the icon, June Martino. And so I went up there and I said, hi, June. And she again, so approachable, it's astonishing me. She goes, oh, hi. She knew who I was because I was in there every Wednesday. And I said, can I ask you a question? She said, sure. And I said, could you tell me about it? She said, well, what's that? And I said, well, the whole McDonald's thing. She put her arm around me, brought me in the kitchen, and the entire day told me the entire story from the very beginning, where incidentally the movie starts, where he was just a milkshake mixer salesman for Prince Castle, selling the spindle milkshake mixers, all the way to meeting the brothers, and then literally all the way up to where we were sitting in her kitchen. She even had her maiden butler bringing us food so she could keep telling me the story. Like, I'm thinking, man, who's this lady talking to? You know, I mean, there's this snot-nosed 16-year-old kid, you know, already burnt out janitor, son of a milkman. And why is she taking all this time to tell me this stuff? And I was astonished by this. And I really was. And I was quite taken back, actually, as I'm thinking, man, this is her. And I'm listening to what she's saying, but at the same time, the whole thing seems sort of surreal to me. And then she told me about and they nod to this in the movie, where they ran out of money. There was no money, and that causes Michael Keaton, Ray Kroc, call the brothers. They have a drama scene. I need more percentage. Slams down the phone. Right. That did happen. It just didn't happen that way. And so she told me about that event, right, where they ran out of money. And so Ray Kroc agreed to pay her in worthless company stock, worth less than zero. And he would take all the phone calls from the bill collectors when they wanted money each month, right? But he couldn't pay her, so he didn't pay her nothing. So I just asked her. I said, June, why'd you do it? You know, I'm a janitor. I work Friday to Friday. If I don't get a paycheck on Friday, I'm not showing on Saturday. I need the paycheck on Friday, right? I live paycheck to paycheck. And so I asked her, why'd you do it? And she sat back and stared at me with this blank look on her face. And I thought, oh my God, I just asked her a question no one had ever asked her before. She's really having to think about this one. And it was like maybe 15 seconds, but it seemed like an hour, because she's staring at me, but I could tell she's not home. She's thinking, right? Her mind's gone. And then she spoke, and it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. I still remember what she said, the way she said it, and my immediate thought after. When I asked her, why'd you do it? When she finally answered, and I said, when I said, why'd you work for nothing? She said to me, because I believed in Ray. And the way she said it just was astonishing to me. And my first thought was, that's it. I need to find me a Ray Kroc. That's what I need to find someone like that, because all I know is I'm son of a milkman, burnt out janitor. I don't even know what I don't know. All I know is I don't know whatever that is. I don't even know what that is. I just know I don't know it, right? You don't get any more I don't know than that, right? I mean, I don't know how many I knows I get. I just knew I was there, right? And that's the only thing I knew. I didn't know it. And I thought, man, where would I find my Ray Kroc? And then it wasn't literally just a couple of months later, we got a phone call at the janitorial service I worked for at that time about this guy coming in from Michigan. He was opening a diamond business. And this man became my mentor. He offered me a job. I started working for him, and he truly became my Ray Kroc. And he taught me so many, many things. And I was what you call intelligently ignorant. I was too dumb to figure out what he was saying wouldn't work. So I just listened to him. Because he had done it, I could tell he was a multimillionaire, and he was happy and he had everything that I thought I wanted in life, right? So I just listened to what he said, and I started applying what he had said, just because I just wanted whatever he had. I mean, he had all the things I ever thought I wanted in my life. And I listened to him and listened to so many things that he taught me in such a short period of time. And then at the age of 19, I asked him, I said, Sam, will you teach me everything? I mean, I want to know it all of it. Please don't hold back. And he said, okay, I will teach you everything, but I want one thing from you. He said, when the time is right, and you will know that time, I want you to teach as many people as you can everything that I teach you. So at 19 years old, I made a vow. I made an oath to my mentor that I'm still living today, 31 years later. And 31 years, that was the launch in 1991 when my mentor passed away. That was the beginning of Givers University. And 31 years later, it's launching. Because of everything that's gone into it. And he taught me so many incredible things. And he taught me about this thing called giver and taker. And I'd like to invest a few minutes, if I can, with your listeners to give that distinction. First of all, we love everybody. And we say that. I say it emphatically. We love everybody. But we teach a skill called discernment. It's one word. And it's a skill not being taught today. And it's a skill. It's an observation skill. So we say we love everybody, but we teach the skill of how to separate the person who we love from their deeds, which we may not love. And by separating those two and an observation skill, we watch what they're doing. And then from that, begin to discern. As we say at Givers University, your talk talks and your walk talks, but your walk talks louder than your talk talks. So We watch their deeds. We watch what they're doing. And then we begin to discern, should I bring this person closer in my life because what I'm watching them do? I want to have them closer in my life. Or because of what I'm seeing them doing, should I begin respectfully distancing myself? Not rude or nasty, just respectfully distancing yourself. Because if I bring them closer, they're going to make me collateral damage. And I'm going to be stomping out fires not of my making. I ask your listeners, think about every fire in your life that you stomp out. And I know for sure there's one thing in common with all of them. There is a name attached to each one of them. And it would be a whole lot easier if we knew how to discern and not bring them in closer, so we didn't have to throw away all this time and investment every day, not to mention the stress and everything else with it of stomping out these fires because we have the wrong people around us, And I was doing an interview, a few interviews back. This one guy, well, I really love this stuff. And I read this book, and this book said I should have 5 good people around me. And I said, you're right, you should. You should have 5 good people around you. One question. Which 5?
Yeah, that's true. It's something that we teach a lot in personal branding too, because you can build a brand that represents and attracts the kind of people you want in your business and your life, because business is an extension of life. You don't want to work with those people either if you don't want to be around them personally, right? So there's a lot of credence to that, And if you would, EA, because I don't think we got into this the last time that we interviewed you, so I'd love to hear from you. You do have 7 steps to building a giver's community. And considering the people that are in our audience, I would love for you to share those steps so everybody knows how to accomplish what you have accomplished. In other words, share what you have learned, right?
Absolutely. And actually, if I can even go one better, between the time we talked last time and this time, we've actually completed an entire series. It's absolutely free at our YouTube channel. And it consists of over 20 2-minute clips, literally 20 of them in a row. And the first one starts out with, what's a community? What's the difference between a giver community and a taker community? And people don't know there's a lot of communities today that are taker communities. And, they say, join us. We're the like mind. We're the same kind of people. And you join. And like 6 hours later, they're trying to sell you everything under the sun, right? That's not a community. That's a customer hit list. That's a prospect list, right? We should call it what it is. Don't call it a community because it's not, right?
Right.
So we start with the first video and identifying, well, what's a community? And then what it is, how do we decide what kind of community we want? There's 3 different kinds that we identify at Givers University, and we teach people free how to build these. We love to do it because it's valuable. We have a better life when we have learned how to discern which people to have around us and which people we should be respectfully distancing ourselves from. And we walk them all the way through, even with their own community, when they have their meetings, what should their agenda look like? Why so many businesses why their meetings become, excuse me, I just have to take a little break here while I nod off and go take a nap, because and no one wants to attend their meetings. They're just ridiculous. They're redundant. So how do you do the agenda? How do you do the meetings? So literally, if they go to Givers University, just go to YouTube, type in Givers University, one word. That's all I got to do. Pull up our channel, the Givers University channel. I think it might be the second playlist, but it'll say how to build your giver community. Check out all 20. It's over 20. I think it might be 23 clips, about 2 minutes in length each. Start at the first one. It steps you all the way through building the community, how you build the community, what you should say when you're inviting people to the community, what your agenda should be once you have the community, what should you be doing to help each other grow and prosper, all the way through the entire scenario. So, if anyone's ever had a mastermind group that's not stayed together, and I've always been astonished by, how many of them come together and then within a couple months later, they just sort of dissipate. And it's because they didn't know these critical parts of how to do that. Napoleon Hill does an excellent job in Think and Grow Rich, a masterful job of explaining what a mastermind is, but it doesn't explain how to build it. And so we broke it down to much more granular. How do you build it step by step? No one's able to ask, how else do I do this? Because it's covered. So that's actually the fastest and easiest way. And it's totally free, and they can go and get all the benefit of it. Just go to How to Build Your Giver Community, that playlist at our YouTube website, or in the YouTube channel is Givers University. That's it. So that would explain that. And the primary aspects of everything we do is built on the acronym GIVER, giver. And these are things, again, my mentor taught me. First thing in leadership is to be willing to give. discern the difference between giving and taking, and that we will benefit more by giving. And even if we think people might take advantage of us, I was at one public speaking event, and the one lady said, I don't like to give away my free stuff. And of course, since I'm an equal opportunity offender, I'm going to be the first one that, is going to speak up. And I said, well, you're not going to like what I'm going to say, but I have to say it. And so she looks at me, and I said, we'll probably never talk again after this, but I got to say it, right? It's coming out at you. I said, if you're concerned that people are going to steal your stuff, you don't have enough stuff.
I love it.
So true.
How about that takeaway, audience?
That is so true. That is so true. Yeah. And before we end today, I want to throw a little live case study at you.
Okay.
I want to get your opinion on something before. I know we just got to the G, but I want to get your opinion when we finish that.
Oh, for sure. I love to. And so, and by the way, she never did talk to me again. So that's the way it goes. But I hope it, sometimes you got to prick the heart a little bit to wake them up a little bit and say, you are never, as my mentor taught me, you're never diminished by giving. People may take advantage of you, but you're never diminished.
But you're not diminished. I love that.
That's the point. Everyone always thinks, well, I'm going to be taken advantage. No, they can't. And also with the law of compensation, it always balances anyway. So there is no downside.
Right.
Giving as much as you can possibly give and try to get that scale out of balance. There's no downside. And if anyone's telling you something different, it's because they're trying to sell a book. It's not because it's the truth. Right. So the next part after give is I. And that is, as a leader, you need to be able to inspire. You have to inspire others. Now, it's important in order to inspire people. There's a part that's important that needs to be done first. We need to be inspired. When we're inspired, we can inspire someone else. Otherwise, it's a dead battery trying to charge a dead battery, right? And so if we're inspired, now we're able to help and inspire other people. How do you become inspired? What are the things that we do? How do we increase our rate of vibration so that when we walk in a room, when you walk into a party, who's everyone around? The person they call the life of the party. They're not around the person in the corner doing the pity party, wham, wham, wham. No one's around that person. In fact, usually those are the kind of people that brighten up a room by leaving it. All right. So then after inspire, the next is vow. As a leader, your yes must mean yes and your no must mean no, period. Non-negotiable. Even if they don't like it. Your word is still your bond. And I'll never forget the first time my mentor said it. I watched him shake another man's hand and he looked into his eyes and he said, my word is my bond. And I remember it struck me when he said that. I thought, man, what an interesting thing to say. My word is my bond. I found that to be true. In fact, later on, I even saw instances where people were upset because he wouldn't participate with them because he said, I just don't have time. It's a great deal. It looks like a great deal. I just don't have the time. And he said, Sam, we don't want anyone else in it but you. We know your word means something, And so it doesn't take long to get that reputation of having your yes mean no. That means when you say you're going to deliver on something for your clients, do it.
Right.
And if you're not going to deliver on it, tell them in advance, hey, I'm going to miss this mark. Is that okay? Don't wait till you've already missed it and then they got to call you on it, and et cetera, et cetera. I said, so, that has to do with what's called managing expectations. Properly manage expectation of your clients, right? The next one, I love this next one. This is educated wisdom. I can share with you over my blessings in business. I have literally met thousands of educated idiots. These are the ones that have all the book knowledge and they can spew it out at you and recite it all back for you, word for word, paragraph for paragraph, and have never done it themselves. That's an educated idiot. If you retain an educated idiot, you're actually paying for their education because they've never done it. Here's a simple question when you get a mentor. Simple question that helps you ferret right through that. When you're looking, and everyone should have a mentor. If you don't have a mentor, we call that in my world naive. That's what we call it. You need a mentor, someone who has done it. And it's a simple way to find out. Don't be afraid to ask, what have you done? Don't be afraid to ask that question. And if they hem and haw around, you have on yourself an educated idiot. Now, coaches are good. They can teach you things. They can teach you a skill, how to do Excel spreadsheets, all those. That's all great. But if you want a mentor, which is a much more intimate relationship, the relationship that says, why are you thinking that way? That kind of relationship, you want to make sure you have someone who's done it, not an educated idiot. And then, of course, we have results. I cannot relate to non-results. My business mentor shared with me, if you are going to be a business, be a business. If you're going to be a charity, call it what it is. And I see today so many people who are charities who think they're a business.
Mm-hmm.
COVID brought about this interesting phenomenon of all these people that, all of a sudden they were looking for ways to make money remote. So all of a sudden there was all these people teaching other people how to be coaches, right? And then all of a sudden they got the realization that the only people that were making money were the ones teaching them how to be coaches. Those are the only ones making real money, because the coaches themselves started realizing, man, I can't make any money doing this. This is tough. Yeah, I may know some things, but no one cares about what I know. What they, and my mentor said, decide right away. He said, don't kid yourself. If you're not earning a profit, stop it. Unless you want to be a charity. Now, if it's a charity, then God bless you. The world needs a lot of charities. We need more of them, right? But don't kid yourself thinking you're doing a business. And I watch these people do these social media hits all day long. They're like living on. I thought, oh my God, these people, I mean, get a life, number one. And number two, you're a charity. You're not earning any money. So my mentor taught me how to quantify every action. It's a word we call EAPOS. It's an acronym. Everything is a percentage of something else. EAPOS. Everything is a percentage of something else. Every action, every thought we even have is actually a percentage of another thought. So quantify your actions. And if you are not earning money, then understand you're a charity. And if you're okay with that, that's great. Then my mentor shared with me, if you're going to be a business, you have to earn a profit. Otherwise, you're a charity. So if you can't quantify a profit you're earning, then by default, you are no longer a business. So make money. Don't be afraid of money. He said, and I told him I wanted to be a millionaire, in my teens. And he said, and he says, I want to be a millionaire. I said, yeah. And I said, well, what do I do? He said, well, I can tell you the first thing. I said, well, what's that? He said, well, you're going to have to get $1 million. I said, oh, great, thanks. That really helped me. He said, now, past the humor, let me tell you the hard part. And he piqued my interest. And he said, the hardest part will be believing that you're worth it. That's the hardest part. Understanding what you're bringing to the table, understanding how we can help people. And then, I'm sharing, and I'm going to share with you, and this is not to be braggadocious, but because I listened to someone who had done it. At 23, I became a millionaire. At 33 was the first year I earned $1 million in 1 year after I paid taxes in personal income at 33 years old, right? And why? None of that was me. I listened to someone who had done it. It was just that simple. If you want to earn $1 million, then talk to someone who's earned $1 million.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're
so true.
Otherwise, you're a charity. So otherwise, you got an educated idiot. And he shared with me, as we get into, and I'd be very curious about the study that you had mentioned that you wanted me to sort of take a look at. But one of the things my mentor shared with me is sort of a final story. He shared with me a really interesting story about a place called Belle Isle. And Belle Isle is Michigan. It's an island. And they wanted to clear it. Over 100 years ago. They wanted to clear it and make it into this park-like setting. So they hired a man to cut down all the trees, or the majority of the trees, if you will. Not clear cut it, but cut it down quite a bit to make it into a park, because it was a full-blown forest island. So this man got the contract. Lumberman got the contract, and he was paid per tree $10. Now, they didn't have chainsaws back then. This is all manual cutting down trees. So he realized no matter how hard he worked, he could not cut down more than 4 trees a day. That was it. He was shot. There was 4 trees was the maximum by hand. These are big trees that he could cut down every day. So 4 trees, let's see, 4 times 10, that's $40 a day, 5 days a week. All right. He made $200, right? Back then, by the way, that was decent money, over 100 years ago, $200 for the week. But then he got smart. Now, my mentor's telling me the story. Then he said, well, I wonder what happens. I know some of my friends need some work. He said, and he talked to one of his friends. He says, I'll tell you what. He said, I need some help with some trees. I'll pay you $5 on every tree that you cut down. His friend said, well, this is great. No problem. So his friend was able to cut down 4 trees like he did, right? So gave them $5, 4 trees a day. But as far as 20 times 5 days a week, that's $100. So he paid the man $100, but he also got to keep $100 because he was getting $200 for the contract. So he said, I got it. And he went and immediately hired 10 other lumbermen. So he was paying each of them $100 a week. He earned $100 from each of the 10. So he was earning $1,000. Plus he got his own $200 a week because he was still cutting down 4 trees a day. He was making $1,200 a week. I did the calculation in today's dollars. He was earning the equivalent of $35,000 a week in today's dollars. What did he do? What my mentor drilled in my head: duplicate or liquidate. Duplicate or liquidate. If you are not able to duplicate what you're doing, if you're a one-trick pony, that means if you stop doing it, everything stops. You're a one-trick pony. He said, that's it. You have to be able to duplicate what you have and what you're doing, and then you can work your way out of a job, which is the ideal function of every single leader. Work your way out of a job by being able to duplicate your efforts. And if you're in a position where you're a one-trick pony, remember, you're always going to be a one-trick pony. Duplicate or liquidate. If you want to earn $1 million, I'll guarantee you, one-trick ponies that are millionaires are anomalies. The ones that have learned how to duplicate what they're doing are the ones that really make the big money. And for those that are your listening audience that are looking to have their brand and want their brand improved, two things. Number one, figure out how to duplicate what you're doing. And number two, remember, your brand is important, but even more important is your customer's brand. Everyone usually, it's the misplaced focus of that, where they, my mentor said, he said, if I took a picture of everyone and I passed it around the room, who do you think they're going to look at in the picture? And the answer is themselves. Everyone looks at themselves first. He said, so people you do business with are going to be way more interested in their own brand. He said, so make sure that your brand accommodates their brand and helps them grow, and that it's quantifiable, not this nebulous, innocuous, 10 times your growth. Oh, please. If I see 10 times one more time, I'm going to fall out of my chair. I mean, it means absolutely nothing. It means nothing. And everyone laughs at it when they see it, and yet I still see these people doing it.
Oh, yeah.
So there's just some things I wanted to share with you that my mentor shared with me, and I was so blessed. Thank you, Sam, for being in my life and continuing to watch over me every single day. And as I continue my commitment and my vow to build Givers University.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, it's a great segue into a case study that I would just love your feedback on. Okay. So I'm going to promote Michael here for just a moment, because actually, Michael, you say, okay, it's either a business or a charity, right? Well, this is actually a bona fide charity. It's called Be My Blessing. Michael, starting 6 years ago, became a novice beekeeper. And so last year, he was very inspired to start a company called Be My Blessing, where 100% of the proceeds go to charity. And so we sell honey here. We sold a bunch of it over the holidays. It makes a great holiday gift, especially when people know the story behind it and the fact that the proceeds go to charity. But I wanted to tell you about how he's trying to scale this, right? Because it's still a young company. We're still in the very beginning of it, and see if we can get your feedback or advice on what would be that great next move. So I'm not even letting Michael talk here because I'm just taking over. But I love this so much, and I'm very excited about it. We have a charity this season called Java Joy. And if you guys are interested, go to BeMyBlessing.org. You can learn more about Java Joy. But the entire purpose for it was to allow other charities to use our honey as a fundraiser for themselves. So it's, help bees stay alive and organizations thrive, right? So you want to fill in the blanks there, Michael, but we'd love to hear what you think about that particular thought process. I know it's a little bit off the mark because it's not a conventional business. It truly is a charity.
Well, first of all, I want to interject that for a charity to be successful, it should be run like a business.
Has to be.
Absolutely.
And it is something that we battle with because, there has to be enough profit to maintain, sustain, and grow that business. And then there has to be enough of the charitable left over that it's worth it to the charity. So we've unfolded that a little bit at a time. We have dedicated that 100% of the proceeds from the honey sales would go to those particular charities. But the idea of it is that organizations can join the movement, if you will. So it doesn't matter if it's a church, a synagogue, a ball club, or like our title charity, a scout organization. It doesn't matter. If they want to raise money, then they effectively are the legs that go out and promote and sell the product. And then 100% of the honey proceeds go towards their particular charity. So they can go to grandma and say, Grandma, buy my 6 ounces of honey right here, my Be My Blessing honey, and support my organization, and thereby growing the profitability of the overall company, each organization at a time. Does that make sense?
For sure. And it sounds like a sweet deal. And it's funny because it sounds like it'd be a great way for someone to get into a business and be able to grow something. And if someone's a taker, you can tell them you need to change the way you're acting, and it's time for you to behive about the way you're working, and change and modify your activity.
I love it. I love
Oh,
it.
that's great.
This is definitely a buzzworthy episode.
It is.
Sure is. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I knew you'd have something insightful and fun to say about it.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
And it actually
but,
sounds quite interesting for sure. And again, quantification is very important, right? I mean, and
Mhm.
when something can be simply done, simple to duplicate, easier the better. And it can be something very easy with what they're already doing to show how simple. This just becomes a part of this, I mean, as an organization, if they have shipping packages go out, it can be just as simple as slipping in a flyer inside a package that's being delivered, and it doesn't even take any extra time. And next thing you know, they're doing something really sweet for a lot of people. And I think this is a great way to something like that is the perfect way, and ease of duplication, and then quantify. They need to know, okay, so and so company did this. So the first, if you're asking me in retrospect what I would do, I'd say number one, for the companies that got involved, I would make it a conditional. And the conditional works as follows. I'm going to use XYZ's company. And I'd say, okay, XYZ company, we appreciate your interest in, what's the name of the charity again? One more time.
Be My Blessing.
Okay. We appreciate your interest in Be My Blessing, but I want to let you know we're very selective as to who we work with. So there's a couple of things I need to ask for in order for us to accept you to participate. Number one is that if you get the results that we are talking about, I'd like to get that testimonial in writing on your letterhead. If you don't, there's no problem. But if you get the results we're talking about, I'd like to get that testimonial on your letterhead in writing. And number two, if you like what we're doing and you see the results, I'm going to ask you to introduce me to 2 other businesses who would be interested in participating. And here's why. We don't like to have 50% of our time spent building our charity and 50% of our time working on the charity and working with our clients. We would much rather work with our clients 100% of the time. So we make it incumbent on our clients before we accept them in, that if we deliver, if we don't deliver, you're not obligated. But if we deliver, that we get at least 2 introductions from other companies who you think you'd like to be interested as well. So I want to let you know, when we deliver, I'm going to come knocking. So are those 2 conditions acceptable to you? If not, no problem. We love you and we know it's not a good fit. Are those acceptable? And you'll be amazed at how almost no company will say no. And then it'll be much easier to go back and get those referrals in a testimonial. And the quantification part will be in the testimonial letter, which will help you build more. Because now you can say, here's this company, here's this company, here's this company, here's how much they made. They said how simple it was, didn't take any extra time. They didn't have to hire any more people. It was a great way for them to participate and give back to the community.
Love it.
yes,
Love it, EA.
Yes, you see,
Yep.
I knew he would give once again. EA, thank you so much for coming and spending time with us today. Just one last question for you. If you had a chance to visit anywhere in the world, we like to share this with our listeners, where would you visit and why?
I have to tell you, I just moved there. And I know it's, people always think, well, it's going to be like some exotic place or something else. And I've been blessed with international travels for sure. I moved to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I can tell you, I absolutely love the place. Love everything about it, all it. So having recently moved there, it was the choice. So I answered your question even a little bit more because it wasn't only a place to visit. If you could live anywhere in the world and move there, where would it be? And I just did that literally 3 months ago. And I can tell you, it is awesome in every way I could ever imagine. And it's been a real blessing.
That's awesome. Yep. And I don't know if I've ever been there or not. I've been through Iowa for sure, but it's not one of the states that I did a lot of travel in back when I was on the road.
The thing that was astonishing to me was when I first did sort of a drive here to sort of test it, I kept thinking, man, when's this place going to level out? Because I'm thinking Iowa, and being born and raised in Chicago, I know cornfields. As soon as you're outside Chicago, it's cornfields. As soon as you get past the population, right? So I know what that looks like, I thought, oh my God, I'm moving back to the cornfields again. But it hit all the criteria I was looking for from a government perspective, from education, from crime. And I went through the whole list of all the things that are important, compared against all 50 states and looked at it and I thought, man, when's this place going? And then I didn't realize that I just didn't put it together. The Mississippi River divides Illinois and Iowa. And because of that river, the eastern part of Iowa is very, very hilly, just like the area I'd lived in Michigan. And I was shocked at that because I could think, man, this place is when's it going to flatten out? And it doesn't. It never flattens out. So it had everything that I need and want. And as far as a city to live in, You know, I don't know, maybe too many people are going to move here now because what I'm saying. Anyway, yeah, but
We can edit that out.
That's
I
all
was
right, yeah.
just kidding. I was
We'll
kidding.
sell houses. It's
Some people
okay.
just can't take a joke. You know, I was talking about Iowa. It's a joke. You know, but it really is a blessing. And you know, and that's the thing. And as a parting thought, I'd like to share with you. Truly, when I go to sleep at night, because of the things my mentor has taught me, and because I put God first in my life, right? Because of those things, do you know when I go to sleep at night, I can hardly wait to wake up the next day because of all the extraordinary things I know are going to happen. And you know, isn't that how all of us should go to sleep at night?
Absolutely.
We
Yes.
can hardly wait to get up the next day with so much filled with anticipation and excitement and joy of what that next day. I can share with you because I simply implemented what people way smarter than me taught me, and I listened to them. I fortunately am able to go to sleep that way every single night. And I pray every one of your listeners are able to do the same thing.
I love it. That's a great ending right there for it. I got to say this because it has to play a part in it. And I'm sure both sides feed each other, right? But you also are a joy to be around. And I definitely think that is a huge driver for success. And I know based on what you just said, that one of the reasons why you're always in a good mood like that is because of how you've been blessed. So I find it to be a complete circle. And you're a prime example of it. So,
well, thank you so much. And thank you for my mentor for teaching me what to do.
Brought to you by BrandFace, the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe.